about many unknown and unpopular characters of the Chumash. We learned about Cain and all of the generations. We learned about Eliezer Abed Avram. We learned about Lot. We learned about Ham, who was the father of Canaan, Ham Abi Canaan. We learned about Lavan last week. Seems like all of the peripheral characters of Sefer Bereshis, and I hope that week by week it's becoming clear that they're not peripheral at all. Not only not peripheral, but to a great extent they're not necessarily evil. Even some of the evil people aren't so evil. When you grow up in school, there's always the good guys and the bad guys, the cops and robbers. So everything is Yaakov and Esav. Esav is the ultimate. We didn't get to him yet. He's the ultimate. We spoke last week about Lavan at length. Lavan was the one who was trying to hurt Yaakov. Lavan was the one who forced Yaakov to stay in his place outside of Eretz Yisrael for 14 years. Lavan, we learned last week, was the one that wanted Yaakov to adopt the culture of his grandfather, of Avraham, and not go the way of Yitzchak. And this is very important, because Avraham was one thing, very universal, very changing the world. That was the story of Avraham. He was changing the world. And Yitzchak really didn't continue in that exact era, but Yitzchak was what's called in the Sfarim mitzamtzem. He narrowed it to a much narrower place, tzimtzum, in Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak was Ola Tamima, never went out of Eretz Yisrael. Please. It's easier otherwise, I guess I'm doing rubbernecking. So Lavan is such a bad guy, but I was just thinking of the chuppah that I was just at. So before the chuppah, so the chassan goes to the kala, and the fathers are there. It was a very beautiful mamad. This particular chuppah was very beautiful. And one of the fathers, Mevarach, his daughter, and At Ha'i At Alfei Revova. Who said that? Lavan. This was the bracha that Lavan gave to his daughter before he left. So here supposedly the Rasha, the Ramai, Lavan HaRamai, Bikesh Lavan La'akar Es HaKol, but it's not all bad, because there was something there. He was a big Talmud, Lavan was, a big chassid of Avraham Avinu. And he wanted Yaakov to be a chassid of Avraham Avinu. Yaakov was in a different place. He was taking the way of Yitzchak. He was taking a line which was narrowing and narrowing and narrowing until it got to us. We're a very small people. We're a very small people. Many people, I'm sure you've had the same experience that I've had over the years. I could remember sitting next to people on the plane and they say, "You're Jewish? I never met a Jew. Never saw a Jew." Yeah, they probably did, but they didn't realize not so close up. Scary for them, It's interesting that when we're here, we think we're the center of the world. We are the center of the world, but nobody knows it except for us. We're very small people, and you could see there was a strain. I'm saying this as an introduction to what I want to say this evening. There was a strain, there was a stress that was going on between the idea of getting the whole world to be the children of Avraham Avinu. So much of the world have adopted the culture of Avraham Avinu. He's the Avhol, Av Hamon Goyim, Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim. So obviously the Jews, Christians lay claim to Avraham Avinu, the Islam lays claim to Avraham Avinu. Who knows who else? Avraham Avinu is universal. Yitzchak, narrower. Yaakov, even narrower. Shiftation. And in Yaakov, in Yitzchak itself, there was Yaakov, there was Esav. In Avraham himself, there was Yitzchak, there was Ishmael. So we're fine-tuning and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. Is this good? Of course it's good. So the Torah says this is our history. We are the tweak. We are the tweak. We're the result of all of that tweaking. the point of it is, as I've explained over and over again, is that it's not about getting the whole world to believe in God. That's a good thing. We should do that. That's not the point, though. That's not the point of being Jewish. The point of being Jewish is to bring the world to become a home for Hashem. A tikkun olam. In the very deepest sense, tikkun olam. I don't mean tikkun olam, just go hug a tree. But tikkun olam in the sense that Adam Harishon messed up with the chet of the Eitz Hadas, and until that's fixed, Mashiach is not going to come. So that's Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shiftei Yisrael, us. This is the tachlis of it all. That's why this is so important. And all of these side people seem to be pulling away from, okay, like why is Avraham yours? We also want a piece of Avraham. Until today, people are pulling on Avraham. No, isn't true. And people are pulling on Avraham. So I want to speak here for a few minutes about another side character. We don't know that much about him, but he's probably very famous, and that's Ishmael. Ishmael. By the way, isn't it like one of the most beautiful names in the whole Torah? Ishmael. Anybody want to name their kids Ishmael? It's very interesting, by the way, throughout the period of Tanakh, but throughout the whole period of Tanakh, throughout the whole period of Mishnah, Gemara, there was not one Moshe, not even one. Not one Moshe. Until the Rambam, in the 12th century, there was no Moshe. Moshe lo kam Moshe. There was no Avraham. Nobody named the child Avraham. One Avraham, Tanoim, Amoraim, in Chumash, no Avraham. Ishmael, there were many. In Divrei Hayamim, there's Ishmael. In Mishnah, there's Ishmael. In Brisa, there's Ishmael. In Gemara, there's Ishmael. Ishmael is a name, interesting, like Ishmael. I mean, why Ishmael, not Moshe? Ishmael. Till today, by the way, there's people that name their children Ishmael. It's a little bit hard here in Israel because we have Arabs and everything. but the fact of the matter is, who knows if they're the Bnei Ishmael? I don't know. But the Ishmael, the Medrash says, just as an aside, the Medrash says that we know why he was called Ishmael. We're going to learn because Hashem said that I'm listening to your tefillah. Ishmael said to Haggar, I'm listening to your tefillah. But the Gemara says that there's going to come a time, ba'achrit hayamim, that's now, that everyone's going to do tshuva, so that the Mashiach could come. Meaning we're going to finally get to this tikkun of the chet of Adam Harishon, and who's going to bring this tshuva into the world? Yishmael. Who's going to create a situation where everyone's going to listen to Hashem? The Bnei Ishmael. Okay, look, there's a lot of ways to get people to do tshuva. But it's interesting that Chazal point this out. There's going to come a time where it's going to be Yishmael. People are going to, because the diktuk is such that Yishmael, God will be listened to. God will be listened to. So we have to sort of reckon with Yishmael. So let's look at Parak Chapei, Pasuk Yud Beis, the end of Chayesara, page 122. I don't know how else how it is.
Can you repeat again? Sorry, not the
There you
page.
go. Chapei Yud Beis, Shavi. Here says the Torah. One of the paragraphs that we go through quickly. Ve'eleh toldos Yishmael ben Avram. These are the children, says the Chumash, of Ishmael, the son of Avram. Asher Yolda Haggar HaMitzris, which Haggar gave birth to. Shivcha Sarah LaAvram. Haggar. We need to speak about a fascinating lady. Haggar HaMitzris. Haggar the Egyptian. Now you hear maidservant, so you think, okay, she was the maid. It's a funny word, maidservant, I don't even know what it means. But who she really was, Haggar HaMitzris, what? Paro. She was, when Avraham and Sarah went to Mitzrayim, they found Haggar. Bas Paro. The Paro that Avraham had an issue with was so taken with Avraham, he said, please take my daughter. He said, okay, we'll take her away. We'll take her away. So she was a princess. She wasn't a maidservant. And she said, says the Gemara, I'll go because I'd rather be a maidservant to this family, the Avraham family, than to be the daughter of Paro. She saw this. Why? Why? Not because it's such a big kavod to be Jewish. It's a kavod, but I don't know if that was pretty big kavod to be Egyptian also, the daughter of Paro. I'm sure she got more kavod and more riches and more luxurious items. But because she wanted to be involved, this is very important for everything I'm going to say. Clear to me. She wanted to be involved, Paro, and she, in Mitzrayim in general, wanted to be involved in this line of continuing Avraham Avinu's philosophy, and in the line of being from the family that are doing the Tikkun Olam that we keep talking about. Now, find also Esav. Eliphaz ben Esav took Timnah, also another princess. There were people, princesses, kings, were joining Avraham Avinu, and Yitzchak and Yaakov, they were like very simple shepherds, basically. But they were the ones that were carrying out the Jewish line. And this is the issue. So Elah told us, Ishmael ben Avraham, Asher Yolda Haggar HaMitzri Shivcha Sarah LaAvraham. Here are the children of Ishmael. Ve'elah Shmos b'nei Ishmael, this is their names. Bishmosam, L'toldosam, according to their generations. Bechor Yishmael, Nivayos, V'kedar, Va'ad Be'el, Umibsam, Umishma, V'duma, Umasa, Chadad, V'sema, Yetur, Nafish, V'kedma. If you remember these names, you can win the National Bible Contest. What's these names are like? Elohim b'nei Yishmael. It's like a list in the Chumash of unimportant names. Unimportant people. Elohim b'nei Yishmael. These are the children of Yishmael. Ve'elah shemosam b'chatzreim u'b'tirosam. These are their names based on their cities, based on their fortresses. Listen to this. Shneim asar nesiim lu'umosam. You should know, says the Torah, that there were 12 tribes of Yishmael. Isn't that interesting? 12 tribes. Sounds familiar? Ishmael had 12 tribes, and the Torah makes a point of it. Not that we have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Torah makes a point of it. Ushnei asar nesiim lu'umosam. You should understand that there are 12 tribes that came from Ishmael, just like 12 tribes came from Yaakov. Something's going on. And then it says, Ve'elah shnei chaye Ishmael. What about Ishmael itself? These are his years. Ma'ash shana u'shloshim shana v'sheva shanim. 100 years, and 30 years, and 7 years. Who does that sound like? Sarah. And what does Rashi say about Sarah, so famous? That when she was 100, she was 20 lechet, and when she was 20, she was like 7 leopi, like a tzaddik. Sarah was a tzaddik. That's what the Torah is telling. What is it saying? This doesn't say this about anybody else. 2 people, as far as I know, about Sarah and about Ishmael. That is 100 years, and 30 years, and 7 years. There Rashi says at the end, by Sarah, it says, Kulan shavin latova. That by Sarah, they were all good years. So we have to conclude the same thing is true by Ishmael. This is not the Ishmael we know already. It's not the Ishmael we know. Vayigva, Vayamos. What does Vayigva mean? Vayigva. He died. He expired. No, the Vayamos means he died. So what's Vayigva? Says Rashi. Take a look. Vayigva lo nemra gvia ella b'tzadikim. The same lashon it says when Avraham died. Vayikva vayamos. This is the second place Rashi says this. That Vayikva, he expired. It means to say that he didn't get sick. He didn't have Yisurim. It was like Moshe Rabbeinu. He just died. Came time to die, just died. Okay, bye. I'm dying now. That's what Vayikva means. He turned into a gviyah. You know where we say Nadon Olam. Ruchi gviyasi. Vayikva vayamos. Lo nemra gviyah ela b'tzadikim. Baba Basra. Tazayin. It's a Gemara. Vayeyosef el amav, and he was gathered onto his people. Another language which is just used by tzadikim. So Yishmael, we have every indication that he was a tzadik, and he was always a tzadik. That's what it says. Yishmael a tzadik. We have a new idea. Vayishkenu mechavila They lived in Chavila ad Shur, meaning the children of Ishmael lived stretched out, their land stretched out. Children of Ishmael. Me Chavila ad Shur, Asher al Pnei Mitzrayim, all the way down to the Egyptian border, means like Eilat, Jordan, Petra, these cities, ad Shur. Boacha, Ashura, which was the route to go to Ashur, which would be more north. Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal. I'm reading the English here. Over all his brothers he dwelt. Does that help you? Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal. Anybody want to attempt a shot? Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal. What do the words mean? Ishmael was ruling the Yishmael and the Bnei Yishmael, who the Torah has only nice things to say here. It doesn't say here in Yimach Shemo. And we don't have the Toldos of other Rishoyim. We don't know all their Toldos this way, and we certainly don't talk about them. Vayikva, Vayamos, Vayesaf, Alamav, and their children took over the whole southern border of Eretz Yisrael, and that was the Bnei Yishmael, and there they were. And the Torah makes a point of saying this. You go back a few psukim to the top of the page. Let's say the Pasuk Ches. Pasuk Zayin. Okay. Pasuk Zayin. Chafei Zayin. Talks about the death of Avraham. Right before the death of Ishmael. Ishmael was a son. Ve'elu yemei shnei chaye Avram asher chai. Again, ma'as shana v'shivim shana v'chamei shanim. I apologize, it's the third time. We have the same thing, Kulan Shavan Latova. Again, Vayikva Vayamos. Same language again, Vayikva Vayamos. And Vayikva Elu Tzadikim.
What does the word mean?
Expired. But
Why Kavia? That's the expression.
Vayamos Avraham B'Seva Toiva Zoken B'Saveya. He died happy. He died satisfied. He died old. Avraham we're talking about now. Vayosef Alamav, another tzadik, Avraham. Vayosef Alamav, he was gathered to his people. This is the pasuk that I really want to tell you. Vayikbur also, who buried Avraham? Who took him to Maras HaMachpelah? Vayikbur also Yitzchak v'Yishmael. So this is the vision, the visual that you need to have in your head here for the next half an hour. Yitzchak and Ishmael. This is like not Oslo. This is Yitzchak and Ishmael. Vayikru also Yitzchak the Ishmael Bama al Maras HaMachpelah. They buried him in the Maras HaMachpelah. They'll say Ephron ben Sochar Hakiti Asher Opnei Mamre. This was Hasadah, says the Torah, Asher Kona Avraham Eish B'nei Ches. This was the place, Maras HaMachpelah, which Avraham purchased for Sarah, of course, Eish B'nei Ches. Shama Kubar Avraham v'Sarah Ishta. This is Kilu. He's just getting buried. So here the Torah talks into a narrative and says, this is the Maras HaMachpelah, in parentheses. B'Sugrayim. You should know that this is the Maras HaMachpelah, the one that Ishmael came to, and Yitzchak came to, carrying the body of their father Avraham together in unity. Yitzchak and Ishmael. Vayeshev Yitzchak in Ber Lachai Roi. And Yitzchak lived in a place called Ber Lachai Roi, which we must examine. This place, Ber Lachai Roi, is a fascinating place we're going to learn. But that's where Yitzchak lived, and Ishmael. Well, Ishmael died shortly thereafter, apparently. But Elah told us Ishmael ben Avraham. So I went a little backwards, but I wanted to point out that Ishmael died as a tzaddik. Moving backwards, Ishmael was already at the levaya of Avraham Avinu. This was his father. And apparently he was Makabel, the Torah of Avraham Avinu. So here we have Avraham Avinu, the great Avraham Avinu, Av Hamon Goyim, the greatest in the world, the one who changed the whole world, and his two sons, Yitzchak and Ishmael. We all know about Yaakov and Esav this way. two sons that can go two different ways. But this is interesting. Yitzchak and Ishmael can go two different ways, and they were friends. This wasn't Yaakov and Esau. They were friends, apparently. We don't know that if there was any politics between Yitzchak and Ishmael. A little bit, Rashi says, that when they were playing, they used to hurt each other.
What is that?
I was just thinking tonight, under the chuppah, the Rav who was speaking, I don't know his name, I'm sorry, but the Rav who was speaking said that, in this week's parsha, we're blessing our children, Yisim Chalakim K'Ephraim Achim Menashe. So he said, what's this blessing of Ephraim and Menashe? These are the first two brothers in Judaism that got along. But it's not really true. It's not really true. First of all, Yitzchak and Ishmael got along, and then there was a time, by the way, that when Yaakov met Esau, just while we're here, Yaakov met Esau, it says, Vayishakehu, and Esau kissed him. And everybody knows the Rashi, it looked like he was kissing him, it was really biting him, it was really hurting him. That Rashi everybody knows, right? It's a familiar Rashi. Here the Torah makes us feel good and says, oh, they got along. No, it was biting him. The Rashi says, nobody reads further at Rashi, but that's not the real pshat. The real pshat is Vayishakehu, Yishakehu mamash, ba'ahava. Mamash loved him. It came to a point where they loved each other also. So it's interesting also. We have to get to Yaakov and Esau, very, very important. But here we see starting to formulate a picture of Ishmael. If you go back with me, please. I want to take a little tour of the Chumash. Yes.
Why does it say it was after the death of Avraham that God blessed Yitzchak, and then it goes on about the Toldos Ishmael. Why did he bless Yitzchak then?
Vayivarech Elokim es Yitzchak beno. Very good.
Both sons.
Good question. And we also need to know, very good question, we're going to answer that question, definitely. And we also need to know why it's important that he lived in Ber Lachai Roi. He lived in Tel Aviv. I mean, what's the difference where he lived? I mean, that doesn't seem to be so pertinent to the story here. If you go back to Tes Zayin, Perek Tes Zayin, Pasuk Aleph, page 70 if you have the stone Chumash. And here we have the story that everybody knows, but let's go over together for the Diukim and the Psukim. Very important Psukim. The story of the birth of Yishmael. V'sarai Eshes Avram, we'll go through quickly. V'sarai Eshes Avram lo yolda lo, did not have any children. Lo yolda lo, she did not give any children to him, to Avraham. She did not give any children to Avraham. Let's just think about it for a second. I'd like to get the picture clear in my mind. Like, how long do you wait before you decide that, we're not having children? What does that take? A year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? I just want to point out something here, that Avraham got married when he was 21. 21. It's a good time. He married Sarah. I don't know, it doesn't say clearly how old Sarah was. They waited 67 years. 67 years. Until Sarah said, you know what, this doesn't seem to be working. Meaning, this story that we're reading here, which is talking about which we're going to get to the birth of Yishmael. We don't know the years exactly because we don't know exactly how long some of these things took. But we know Barach, So it seems that when Yishmael, this we do know, when Yishmael was born, which is what we're going to learn about, Avraham Avinu was 88. It's clear. He was 88 years old. So it means he got married at 21 to Sarah. And then when he was 88, we don't have any children. So what are we going to do? Daven. Time to daven. Starting to become a concern.
But they lived longer then, no? Didn't the people live longer?
Listen, it's not so posh because I don't want to skip ahead, but first of all, he didn't live all that long. I mean, he didn't live 900 years. He lived 180 years, 175 years. But when Yitzchak was born, when the Surah came that Yitzchak was going to be born, so what did Sarah say? She laughed. What? Well, then my husband's 100 years old. He's going to have a child. So you say, well, this was in the Bible. Everything could happen. Like 100 years old, that's kid stuff, right? It's dog years. No, you see that that's not the case. You see that Sarah's I'm an old lady. Oh, by the way, she said she's 99 at the time. So I'm 99. You're 100. We're going to have a child. But she laughed. So you see, it was very, very laughable to have a child at 100 years old. So it's not that much different than it is. No, okay, we're not giving birth at 100 years old, but okay, it's not like Mr. Shelach here. No. So when we say he was 88 years old and didn't have children, so he says, look, the clock is ticking. I've got maybe 10, 12 years, to have a child. What's going to be? So Avraham Avinu talking, not even her. What's going to be? So patience is a big virtue, you see. So Avram was Tishim Shana. I'm sorry. The Sarah Imeinu Avram lo Yoldalai, lo Shivcha Mitzri. So she had this Egyptian woman, the daughter of Paro. Don't forget, Ushma Haggar. But Tomer and Sarai, which was her name at the time, said so generously to Abraham. But Tomer Sarai el Avram Hine no Atzarani Hashem Miledes. Let's face it, I'm not having any children. It's not happening. Bo na el shivchasi. So why don't you cohabit with Hagar, which was common in those days? Ulai ibana mimena, and maybe from there will be a binyan, meaning that a binyan means not maybe you'll have a child and you'll have a kid to play with and all. But ulai ibana mimena is you need to create a line, Avraham, right? You need to make a tikkun. The whole idea of him being born close to the year 2000 in 1948, and this was all taking place around the year 2000 when Avraham Avinu was desperate to continue his line onto future generations. So ulai ibana mimena, maybe it'll come from Hagar. Okay, nice. Avraham Avinu agrees to this proposition. Vayishma Avram l'kol Sarai. So Avram listens to the voice of Sarai. So her idea. Vatika Sarai eshes Avram es Hagar mitzvah shivchasa. And Sarai takes the wife, Vatika Sarai, who is the wife of Avram, as Hagar or mitzvah shivchasa. She takes her servant Hagar, her right-hand woman. 10 years after they got back to Eretz Yisrael, Vatiten osel Avram isha lo leisha. I'm always self-conscious about bogging everybody down with the exact pasuk and the exact year, but it's just so important to understand this intelligently because I just, especially if you're not about tshuva, because at least if you're about tshuva, so you learned it as an adult and you have some kind of adult understanding. But if you're like me and you learned it as a kid, you learned it all wrong and there it's stuck forever. So it's important to relearn, all of this. But Tomer Sarai el Avram. So Sarai says to Avram, this is not working. Vayava el Hagar vatahar. He came to Hagar vatahar. She became pregnant. Are you with me on Pasuk Daled? Vatera ki harasa. She saw that she was pregnant, but Tekal Gevirta Beineha, and Sarah became cheap. Rashi says, you're here for 70 years. You couldn't have a child with Avraham Avinu. That's what Hagar was saying. And I'm here for like this, touch and go. I'm pregnant. So Sarai, what kind of attitude is that? But Tomer Sarai el Avram, so Sarai says to Avram, Chamasi alecha. Chamas, this is a strong word there. Chamasi alecha. Anochi nos, I have big complaints against you. Anochi nosati shivchasi b'chekecha. I've given you my shivcha, right? This is such a sacrifice for me to do. I've given you a shivcha. Go live with the shivcha. Right? Anochi nosati shivchasi b'chekecha. Vatera ki harasa. And it works and she becomes pregnant. And what happens? Ve'ekel beida. I become mevuzah. I become disgraced. Yishbot Hashem beini u'beinecha. Just one second. Yishbot Hashem beini u'beinecha. What's the complaint against Avraham? What did he do? Sarah said to marry her. He marries her. That works. So everything is respected. Okay, Hagar is not behaving. Let's say Hagar is not behaving. So what's Yishbot Hashem beini u'beinecha? So Rashi, this is your fault, Avraham. Because you were davening for a child, you weren't davening that me and Sarah should have a child. That's not what your tefillah was. You weren't davening that I want to have a child with Sarah. You're just saying I want to have a child. And this we see from the fact that as soon as you're not with Sarah, you're having a child. So Yishpat Hashem Beini Ubeinecha means that you see that I'm seeing, and Hagar is seeing even worse, that your tefillah was all wrong to begin with. Your tefillah was not an inclusive tefillah. It wasn't a romantic tefillah. It wasn't the tefillah which included me in your tefillah because she understood who Avraham was, and as if you would have davened, I would be the pregnant one and not her.
Is it that Avram still doesn't have this vision that it's narrower, that he has this still universal vision?
Avraham has universal vision. So,
like with the whole thing with Eliyahu,
and therefore, what do you want to say?
that he wasn't sure that it was going to come through Yitzchak. He said that
100% right. That's where we're going to.
And that's what she has.
That's where we're going to, a whole different, and she's saying what's going on. The time is very clear. The time is very clear. What's going on? Ishmael? Ishmael? Is that what's going to be the children over here? By Yomer Avram El Sarah, take it back. If that's what you're worrying about, take it back. See, we're looking at the story. This is very important what you're saying, ladies. Because we're looking at the story, reading the story, like we think we're reading like the West Side Story or something. We think we're reading like some kind of an Italian mafia movie. What's going on? My woman, your woman. It's not what's going on over here. We're talking about who's going to carry on the line of Avraham Avinu. Ulai bona mimena. Clearly, that was the issue. The issue is where's the binyan going to come from? It's interesting. Okay, Hagar sounds good. If she would have been Mechavet Sarah, I think, this I'm guessing. If Hagar would have been Mechavet Sarah, and she would have said to Sarah, look, this is your child, really, I'm just the maidservant, I'm surrogate over here, I'm not the important one, you're the important one, it's in your schos, whatever. If she would have, said what we would have said, all the frum things. Okay, Sarah, because it's still my child, came through, somehow or another was surrogated, is that a word? Through this Hagar. For some reason or another, it was like IVF or something like that. But that's not what she said. But Takel begvirta, because I have the line, you don't have the line. It's not coming from you, it's coming from me. This was a very, very deep stuff. Very, very deep. And it was very, very hurtful to Sarah because Sarah understood that Avraham and Sarah have to have children in order for the line to continue. Let's go a little bit further. I just want to point out, this is, by the way, a big sugya, Ishmael. I don't know how we'll be able to finish it tonight, maybe next week. But let's see what we can do. So he says, take her back. Do whatever you think is good. This is not Hashem saying to Avraham, by the way. As he's later, everything Sarah tells you, do what she says. That's not the story. This is a different story. Don't get confused. It's very important. Many people get confused. This was Avraham saying on his own, take your shifcha and do what you want with her. But Sarah, what did she do with her? She tortured her. Until she kind of forced her to escape and to leave and to run away. So she created an impossible situation. Sarah created. Now, just like I changed your picture tonight of Ishmael, I'm hoping I'm not changing your picture too much of Sarah. But look, this is what it says the Chumash. I mean, we can't change the text here. And she runs away. Enough of this family. What's going on here? You tell me to marry Avraham Avinu, I marry Avraham Avinu, I do exactly, my body works, the spirituality works, everything works, and then you start torturing me? So she ran away. This is who Hagar was, not Toshet. Malach Hashem al ein hamayim b'midbar al ha'ayim b'derech shur. She's running away, and she's spotted by an angel. I must write a book by that title. By Yomer Hagar Shivcha Sarai. And Hagar, the Shivcha Sarai says, Vayomer, Hagar Shivcha Sarai, Emi Zavos Ve'enei Tilechu. Where are you going? Where are you running? The Malach says to her. Vatomar, and she says, you want to know where I'm running? Mipnei Sarai Gevirti Anoichi Barachas. Look at this woman who was the daughter of Paro. Let's keep it in mind. And the daughter of Paro who left her palace in Egypt. She left the whole Egyptian situation there, which was, Times Square. It was the French Riviera, and she goes and she lives out here in nomadic life with Avraham Avinu. I mean, okay, he was a wealthy man, but it wasn't the Paro, it wasn't the pharaohs of Egypt or something. So, where are you running to? I'm running away from my Sarah Gevirti Anoichi Barachas. Vayomer lo malach Hashem, and the malach says to her, Shuvi el gevirtech, v'hisani tachas yadeh. You go back there. Go back there and do what it takes. Hisani, be tortured.
I have another issue. Like Abraham's place here. Like, was it, yeah, okay, so he go marry this woman. He marries the woman. His wife complains. He says, okay, do what you want with her and everything. It seems the whole thing still seems like such a, like Hagar's a human being. And it's
Yeah,
like,
and Sarah was a tough lady.
you know, but even from Avram's point of view, like, if you're already married a woman and everything, like, don't you have a little bit of response? Like, how do you just say, you know,
I mean, the real answer is we see that he does. We don't know
when
that
he tells her to go.
We don't know that he knew that she was going to. He said, do what makes you happy. He didn't know that she was going to torture her and that she was going to run away. This happened without him. But so let's see. But it's an excellent question, an important question. And the last thing I want to do is revise the story. We're grown-ups, you know. Vayomer lo malach Hashem. The malach says to her on the way. Vayomer lo malach Hashem. Arba ezarech. You will have many children. V'lo yisafer meirov. They won't be able to be counted. What does that sound like? Lo yisafer meirov. Nobody will be able to count your children because there's going to be so many. Lo yisafer. Why not? Meirov. Not going to be able to count them because there's going to be so many of them. Doesn't it sound familiar? Like the stars, like the earth. This is Lo yisafer meirov. Vayomer lo malach Hashem. And the malach says, I want to tell you something else. Hina chara. You are pregnant. Okay, she was pregnant during this whole story, to boot. Because she didn't have a child yet. But a lot of things, you will have a child. V'karos Shema Yishmael. And you should call that child Yishmael, she said. Ki Shama, and here's the biblical reason for calling him Yishmael. Ki Shama Hashem El Onyech, because Hashem sent me, the Malach. Let me introduce myself. I am the Malach Hashem. I'm like the burning bush that Moshe saw in the Midbar. You know, he meet these great things in the Midbar. So he met this Malach Hashem in the Midbar. That's pleased to meet you. I'm the Malach Hashem. And because you suffered, because you're struggling, because you're suffering under Sarai, you will have a great, great son. His name will be Ishmael. This was a prediction. Because when Avraham Avinu named him Ishmael, he didn't even know the whole story. He just came out of his mouth. Let his name be Ishmael. Avraham Avinu, for his reasons, called him Ishmael. Very interesting. And from here, the Gemara says that when a father or a mother names a child, it's a nevuah. Nevuah katana. There's a little bit of prophecy over there. Here's the bracha. That son Ishmael, he's giving her bracha now. Not to worry, he's giving her chizuk under the struggle and the abuse that she's taking. Hu yiyeh pera adam. He will be a para adam. What's a para adam? A wild para adam. Okay. The English says a wild ass of a man. I should say that different. I don't know if I accentuated that correctly. Hu yiyeh para adam. So here the Malach is making her feel good and giving her a bracha that you'll have a child and you'll have children, and then you won't be able to count them. They're going to be so many and so multiple, and he's going to be a para adam, like a vilter chaya. Did I tell you the story? I must tell you the story that years and years ago. So when I lived in Buffalo, so a couple came to me, and they said, look, they were like Reform Jews, let's say. So they came and they said that they want to adopt a child. And they went to Jewish Family Service to adopt a child, and they said to them that you have to, like, we only give children to Jews, so you have to be Jewish. So they said, go get a letter from a rabbi that you're Jewish. You know, like when you make aliyah, go get a letter from a rabbi that you're Jewish. So they came to me. I don't know why, of all the rabbis to go to. I was probably the most difficult and ridiculously machmir. So they go to me. They said, "We need a letter. We're Jewish." I said, "Okay. You know, how do I know you're Jewish?" So this lady said to me very close, a clever lady. She said, "And how do you know you're Jewish?" She said to me. you have like a two dots of hook, that you're Jewish, I mean, how do you know you're Jewish? So I said, a good question, but I know my mother was Jewish, I know my grandmother was Jewish, I know like that. So I said, can you count 3 generations? So we're going back and forth. So I said to her, I tell you what, let's do a simple kind of an indication. I said, do you have a Jewish name? She said, yes. So I said, what's your Jewish name? She said, Sarah. Okay, like, if you're a guy, your name's not Sarah. Like a shapeful Rivka. It's like that. It's not like she wasn't religious. She would be religious, so okay, but like she's coming to reform to a temple, but Zion is like, what's your name? Sarah. So I said, okay, you're Jewish. I said, how about you? I told her she's Jewish. I paskin according to that she's Jewish. So she said her mother's Jewish, her grandmother's Jewish. So then I said to him, I said, what about you? This wasn't like it goes after the mother, not the father. They both have to be Jewish for this purpose. So he says to me, Rabbi, from the minute you asked her what her Jewish name is, I knew where this was going. He wasn't as smart as her. I knew where this was going, so I'm racking my brains over here trying to figure out what's my Jewish name. I don't know what my Jewish name is. So I said, okay, well, think about it really strong. Like, what's your Jewish name? My name is Tim. So I said, I tried to suggest a few. No, I've never heard that name. I said, what about Aliyah? You get a call to the Torah. Ever get called to the Torah? No, I never had a bar mitzvah, he tells me. So what about your bris? He doesn't remember his bris. we're going back. So I said, like, grandparents. Ever grandparents in the house? Like, where were they from? So it was like, she thinks maybe from Poland or Czechoslovakia or Hungary or Africa. He doesn't know. This is grandparents. So grandparents. So I said, what did she call you when she was alive? Your grandmother. What did your grandmother call you? So he's thinking. He says to me, I know my Jewish name. So I said, what's your Jewish name? He says, Wilder Chaya. I said, okay, you're Jewish. Who's going to call a guy Wilder Chaya?
That really happened.
Real story.
Oh my gosh.
Did you tell him what it meant?
I remember the first story. Yeah.
In terms of the chronology, Sarah was upset with Haggar and sent her off because she'd had a baby.
She didn't have a baby. She didn't have a baby.
But it says here,
she was pregnant.
but the Malach said, you will conceive.
Okay. So you're so good. You mean, why does it say that you will conceive? It should say you will have a baby.
Conceive, the baby will be.
Comes Rashi and asks your question, very good. It says Rashi, she had a miscarriage and she became pregnant the second time. Okay.
Probably from all the hard work.
I'm being tortured. Hu yiyeh pera adam yadoi, but here's the bracha. Hu yiyeh pera adam, I want to explain to this bracha, it's not so simply bad. It's not such a wilder fire. Hu yiyeh pera adam yadoi bakol, yad kol boy, his hand will be in everything. There will not be, the Gemara says, a nation in the world that will be able to move with somehow not having to consult Ishmael. The Yad Kol Boy, Yado Bakol, the Yad Kol Bo. We're living at a time that maybe we're the first generation that really understands these psukim. Ve'al Pnei Kol Echov Yishkom, and over all of his brothers shall he dwell. Does this sound familiar? Where do we have it? The end of Tolta, the end of Chayesara. Go back, please. Ishmael died long after he was born. Ishmael died. And what is the last thing it says in Parshas Chayesara? Page 122. Al Pnei Kol Echov, that the bracha came true. The bracha of this malach came true. Al Pnei Kol Echov Nafal. Wow. Here it says, Al Pnei Kol Echov. This is for you to ask this question. Here it says, Al Pnei Kol Echov Yishkon. Over all of his brothers he shall dwell. And here it says, over all of his brothers Nafal. Over all of his brothers, interestingly, the English translates, he dwelt. But it's a different word. And how does Nafal means he dwelt? Rashi says Nafal, he was Nofel on them. Meaning that the bracha was that the world will take him on as the leader. The end of the story was that he was the leader in Yadoi Bakol, Yad Kol Boy, and Para Adam, but he was mitnapel on them. He had to force his way. It wasn't a voluntary act of the people. He got there, but he got there in a different way. Okay, very important to compare those two things. Says the Torah further, Batikra. Now this is a very, very important but difficult pasuk, and I want to learn this together. Let's help me with this. But pasuk Yud Gimel. Batikra. At this point, Batikra Shem Hashem Hadover Eleha Ata Kel Ra'i. Sounds familiar? What was it? What happened? Remember? What happened? Right after Avraham died, Yitzchak and Ishmael buried Avraham, and Yitzchak went and he lived where? In Be'er Lachai Ro'i. Alright, that's what it says here at the end. Let's get the pasuk exactly. Vayivarech Elokim es Yitzchak B'no. That Hashem benched Yitzchak, Avraham's son. Vayeshem Yitzchak, and Yitzchak went to live in Be'er Lachai Ro'i. He went to live in Be'er Lachai Ro'i. What was there in Be'er Lachai Ro'i was the end of Ishmael's life. Don't forget. At the end of Ishmael's life, where did Yitzchak choose to live? Be'er Lachai Ro'i. Where does Be'er Lachai Ro'i first appear? Right here, where we're learning now. That this was the place where the Malach revealed itself to Haggar. So now, let's figure out together, why did Yitzchak, after Avraham Avinu died, go to live in the place that the Malach spoke to Haggar about Ishmael, who should have been his nemesis, the competition, his Esav, if you will.
So instead of Ishmael ruling over all his brothers, in the end it was Yitzchak who settled the land. I'm just remembering the blood of your brothers streaming from the land.
Same brother, huh? What does this pasuk mean, though? I'm not. One second. Vaytikra. Feel free to look in English if you have it. I still don't know what it means. I'm on page 72. Vaytikra Shem Hashem, and she called the name of Hashem Hadover Eleha that spoke to her. Did Hashem speak to her? Not really. A malach. Gabriel, you say. Okay, Gabriel. How do you know? Okay. I thought you had inside information. Vatikra Shem Hashem, but what did she call Shem Hashem? Shem Hashem. Vatikra Shem Hashem. Hadover Eleha Ata El. No, let's be careful. If you're good with Hebrew, you look like you're good with Hebrew. Ata El Ra'i. You see the word? Ki Amra, because she said, she called that place, she named that place that Yitzchak eventually went to live. She said, this is the place, and then where she looked up to Hashem and she said, Ata Kel Ra'i. What does it mean? You are Hashem Ra'i. The what? Ra'i with the Kamas. Not sees me. Ra'i. Look at the English. You are the God of vision. You're the one who sees the future. You're the Ra'i, like a Ro'et, like a Navi. This is the Pshat. Ata Kel Ra'i. Ki Amra. Because she said, Hagam Halom Ra'isi Acharei Ro'i. Because she said, could I have seen even here after having seen? Anybody know what that means? Who would have believed? That's what she was saying. Who would have believed that I would give birth to a hero like Ishmael, with everything that I'm going through from Avram? So somehow that pasuk means that, and she named the place after it. Al-Kain, and here's the interesting thing. Al-Kain, Kara, La Be'er, at this Be'er. Now don't forget that the whole story, Ishmael wasn't born. This is not the story of Ishmael. This is a different story. She called the name of this place Be'er. Who has their finger on the place here? Sorry, it just looks like sound like a teacher. Who is it? Be'er Lachai what? Ro'i. She said Kel Ra'i, which means the God of vision. he who sees the future, he who sees all. She called Al-Kain, therefore the place is called, says the narrative, Al-Kain, Kara La Be'er. The Be'er eventually became known as the Be'er Lachai Ro'i, which means the one, Ro'i means, like you're saying, the one who sees me. In other words, Ra'i and Ro'i are two different words. Ra'i means he sees, he's a Ro'eh. As Rashi says. Ro'i means the one who saw my problems. So it's interesting that she called it, Vatikra Shem Hashem Adover Allah Atakel Ra'i. Targum says, by the way, what does it mean she called the name of Hashem? So Rashi says the Targum, if you look on the side, but Salias Bishma da Hashem de Mismalo Lima. She called out and davened in the name of Hashem. She became a believer. She became a very clear believer. I mean, who wouldn't? This Malach was Miskala to her, told her that your suffering has meaning, told her that something's going to come out of your Inui, of your suffering, and it's going to be a Ishmael, it's going to be a great Paradam. And Yodai Bakol, Yad Kobo, and went to Ber Lachai Ro'i. Yitzchak went, I repeat, to Ber Lachai Ro'i to live. So far, so good, I guess. Avraham, at this time, did I skip a pasuk? Vateled Haggar la'Avram ben. Eventually, this pregnant woman, Haggar, had a child. Vayikra Avram shem b'nai asher yolda Haggar Ishmael. And Avram said, I have an idea. Let's call him Ishmael. Nicht wissendig of this whole story that came about with Haggar and the Malach. Maybe he didn't even know how holy Haggar was. He said, this one looks like a Ishmael to me. That's what he said, yeah.
And then, it's funny how I don't think anything when we hear the story so many times, but if Sarah was upset with her and didn't want her there anymore, and she went back, how did she manage to go back to Avraham?
Unbelievable, right? Mm-hmm. She went back. I'm going to tell you how she went back soon. But this is the main story is still to happen. The main story is still to happen. She went back and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. She came back with Ishmael.
Wait, but wasn't pregnant yet with Ishmael. But she got pregnant again after she went
she was
back
born,
instead.
he was born already.
He was born now. She went back.
So
he was born.
No, but when she was thrown out, she left.
She was pregnant.
Yeah, but she lost that baby, right?
And she somehow became pregnant again.
Yeah, but...
Cool.
Cool.
No, I think that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, she was very fertile.
No.
No, I know, I understand. She was separated from her. I understand the question.
Yeah, I thought she wasn't supposed to be with Abraham. That's what I mean.
Right, but she was. And she became pregnant. That's what we're learning here, that she was.
Sorry, how did Sarah know that for sure it was meant to be the lineage through her and Avraham?
The what?
How did she know that it wasn't meant to be from Haggar? How did she know it was supposed to be from her?
They're married for 70 years.
Yeah.
They had a plan, they had a dream, they had a
I know, but I'm saying, how did you know for sure that
we're going to create a line.
Right.
Okay?
And if it didn't
So I'm going to
happen,
tell you something she didn't know, but she was upset that it wasn't. She didn't know, and I'll prove to you that she didn't know. She didn't know.
Didn't know what?
She didn't know that it's going to come from her because she had no idea at this point that she would ever have a child.
Right.
And when she heard she's going to have a child, she broke up laughing.
Yeah, I would have too.
Yitzchak. She didn't know anything about Yitzchak. Yitzchak wasn't a dream. Yishmael is where this whole thing ended up. He came to Ishmael. Let's just look what happens over here.
Could it be that Avram at this point still believed that it could have been from, like,
I believe
he's calling
so.
him Ishmael means that he believes Hashem answered his tefillah also.
I believe so.
So he thinks it is coming from Ishmael.
He also doesn't know that Yitzchak.
You don't know.
Here's the next thing that happens in the Chumash. Very important. So, I'm getting so conscious every week at 10 to 10. Do I have till 10? Is that okay? I mean, I'm not, you come like this. It's 10 o'clock, and then we'll have to pick up next week. But I just let's just understand what we didn't understand, even though we heard the story 100 times. But the next thing that happens here is at the end of Lech Lecha. Let's go to Parak Yud Zayin, Pasuk Tezvav. Page 74. Vayomer Elokim, this is after this whole Maisa here with Haggar. Vayomer Elokim El Avraham. Now don't forget, so Ishmael was living in the house now. This was the household. You had you had Sarah, who was angry. You had Avraham, who was happy. You had Ishmael, who was Ishmael. And that's it. That was the family, little nuclear family there. Vayomer Elokim El Avraham, and I guess for 13 years this was going on. 13 years. This was the mishpacha. Ishmael, they're calling Ishmael. Vayomer Elokim El Avraham. Then Hashem appears to Avraham, and he says to him, Sarah Ishtacha Lesikra Shma Sarai Ki Sarah Shma. Because you remember when Avraham Avinu said that I looked in the stars and I see that I'm not going to have any children. So Rashi tells us that Hashem told them that you're looking, you're right. Avram is not going to have children, but Avraham will have children. Sarai is not going to have any children, but Sarah will have children. So you're right, the stars are good, but you're looking at the wrong chart. Get yourself a new chart, because your name is not. This is why we change names if somebody's, God forbid, deathly ill. So he says, so now your mazel is going to change. Your mazel could have a Yishmael, but now your mazel is going to change. Sarai's mazel is going to change. The stars are going to change. Everything is changing here in Pasuk Tezvav. Vayomer Elokim El Avraham. Name was Avraham. Sarai Ishtacha. Let's talk about your wife Sarai. Don't forget about her. Tikra Shema Sarai Ki Sarah Shema. Give her a new name. Sarah means her dream come true. Sarah. It has a srara. Srara. Ubeirachti I'm going to bless her. V'gam nasati mimena l'cha bein. Ubeirachtiha. I'm going to give her a son also. There's going to be a great nation coming out from her. That's us. Vayipol Avraham al panav Yitzchak. And Avraham, when he heard this, falls down and he laughs. Vayomer belibo, but he says in his heart, Halaven meya shana yivali. You see it? I'm 100 years old. Give me a break. You know how many men come to speak to me and they say, like, children, I'm already 33. I'm going to be 55. People are nervous, like, Halaven meya shana yivali. Being Sarah, and what about Sarah Bas Tishim Shana Teleh? I'm 100, she's 90. What are you talking about? Listen to this. This is a great passage. Vayomer Avraham El Ho'elokim. What he thought in his heart was, I'm 100. What he said, Vayomer Avraham El Elokim Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. If it's your chumash, underline this. Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. I am perfectly content with Yishmael. I need nothing else. That's what he said. It's not me, not the Medrash. Chumash. Avraham Avinu. And Abraham said to God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you." Why make a balagan now? So, he's laughing. He's thinking it seems to him to be ridiculous. Sarah, he's happy. This situation he's happy with. He's happy. He has Ishmael. He has a lineage. He has a dynasty. He has Haggar. It's an interesting dynasty, like an interesting yichus here. His wife is this Ishmael, is a grandson of Paro, after all.
I have a question. How come that where is his belief? He
was happy. He believed. He felt that his
no,
brother
but how
was
he can believe that the Kadosh Baruch Hu will give him a son about 100 years?
If it's necessary,
do everything.
No, it's a good question. If it's necessary, but it's not necessary to have Ishmael. I don't need it necessary.
Where does this mean?
So why is
this
it
last sentence?
Lu Yishmael means Lu means like Halava. Lu, let it be the Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. Let him be the one that lives before you. Meaning, let him be the one that carries me out. He's arguing. Wasn't this like a reverse argument? Does anybody know this? He's arguing with Hashem. Don't give me a kid. I'm 100 years old, for heaven's sakes. Don't give me a kid. Vayomer Elokim, and Hashem says to him, Avos Sarah Ishtecha. But what about Sarah? You have a child. But Sarah Ishtecha, you're never davening for Sarah. That's what he's saying to you. You're never davening for Sarah. Avos Sarah Ishtecha, you'll let us l'chabein. And you know what? V'karasa Shmo Yitzchak. So it's called Yitzchak because Avraham laughed. Not because Sarah laughed. you're going to call him Yitzchak, Vakimosias Brisi Ito, and he's going to be the one that's going to carry on their covenant. Lebris Olam Lazare Achara Uli Yishmael. What about your son Yishmael that you're so crazy about? Shma Ticha Hine Berachti Oisai. I'm going to give him a bracha also, not to worry. V'hifresi Oisai, v'hirbeisi Oisai. He will become hifresi, fruitful. He will become will multiply, be many. Bim od me'od. Listen to this. Shneim Asar Nesiim Yoilid. He will also have 12 Shvatim. Remember we learned at the end of the parsha at Chayisara that the 12 Shvatim came out of him? That's because of this bracha. Hashem, not a malach. Hashem said to Avraham Avinu, don't worry about Ishmael. Something's going to come out of him. He's going to be Nifresi and Nirbesi and a Para Adam. See, I want to tell you something. And he's going to have 12 Shvatim. You know, Para Adam we always take as a pejorative. It's not so simple. It's used as a pejorative because Ishmael, it's used that way. Let me explain something. Very, very important. Yitzchak, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, was becoming, remember at the beginning, it's becoming tweaked. It's getting more and more narrow, the line. Less and less universal. That's what Yitzchak was. Pachad Yitzchak, Tzimtzum. Ola Tamima, never went out of Eretz Yisrael. Yaakov, come back. Yeah, if you're not going to come back to Eretz Yisrael, tell them, don't marry her. It has to be Tzimtzum. Para Adam is the exact opposite. What does para Adam mean? Lashon of pre, sprout. That's what para means. Anytime you see pei resh at the beginning of a word, like pre, perach, pru, urvu. Pei resh at the beginning of a word means hispashtus. The opposite of Yitzchak, which means tzimtzum. The opposite. So what you're going to have a son Yishmael who's going to be nifresi v'nirbesi hu yeh para adam. Para adam, the only place where the word para means like a pre. It's going to sprout all over the place. Yodoi bakol v'yad kol boy. It's going to be everywhere. You're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to open up the television without seeing Yishmael there. He's going to be everywhere. Not to worry. You're going to accomplish. Let me say these words in my closing here before I speak, my radical words. You're going to accomplish your goal too, Haber. You're the universalist. You want the whole world to become frum. You want the whole world to become godly. You'll have a Yishmael for that. Very good. But he's not going to carry on your line of doing the tikkun olam, which needs to happen. That's going to happen through Yitzchak. So here we have, in this parsha, so amazing, there's two things going on all at the same time. Neither one of them are bad. Avram says, let Yishmael do the whole thing. What about Sarah? It has to come from Sarah for some reason. We need to understand that. So it has to come from Sarah. Let me just say this as a sort of a preview here to next week. The next story we're going to have in the Chumash, we have to learn about how a new story about how again Avraham, the Girush Hasheni, again Avraham lets Sarah throw Ishmael and Haggar out of the house. Like something interesting. Talk about reading the story again, like when you're a grown up. She takes Ishmael and she takes him out and she runs out of water. Right? We're going to learn next week. We'll learn inside. She runs out of water. She can't stand to hear the crying of the nar. So she puts him under a bush someplace, and she's crying over here, and he's crying over there. So you have this picture, sad story. How old was Ishmael in the story?
15.
22.
He was 22.
22 now.
I was starting to 13.
22. This was long after he was 13. It was 22. Had to be 22. I'll prove it to you. It was 22. It was a whole different story, right?
Yeah.
Is it a whole different story?
Yeah.
Because, and what happens is that when Yitzchak was finally born, so it was only then that Sarah said, oh, if I have a child Yitzchak, then now I know for sure what I have suspected all along, that Ishmael ben Haggar HaMitzris is not the one to carry on. So until now, so that's why there was two Gerushin. Until now, I didn't know 100% for sure. I just didn't like that Vatokel as Sarah Imeinu, that she was cheapening me. She was not giving me respect. Now I'm saying something else. Ishmael is not part of this family. That's what she says. We're going to learn it. Ishmael is not part of this family. So here, Avraham Avinu, it says, got very upset. Why he's throwing away Ishmael? First of all, he's 21 years old. My gosh, he threw him out of the house. What did he do wrong already? So Rashi says she thought he did stuff wrong. She thought he was going off the derech. That's the tzadik. It's that word again. Keeps on appearing. She saw the Ishmael was mitzachek. She thought she was suspicious of him. But Avraham Avinu didn't want to throw him away, and it was only this time, not like the last time. He didn't say to Sarah, "Okay, do whatever you want." Hashem says you have to listen to Sarah this time. Okay, if I have to listen to this. This was for Avraham Avinu. This was the same as the Akedah. This was the same as the Akedah. So he let her go with Ishmael on her back. Unbelievable, 21-year-old on her back. I'm telling you, he wasn't a little kid. Because if nothing else, you say he was 13, right? Because he was 13 years old when Yitzchak was born. So my point is this: that it was only when Yitzchak was born that Sarah had the sort of self-confidence, if you will, to know that we can really get rid of Ishmael big time. So Sarah was always getting rid of Ishmael. Let me just read to you from the Hamek Dover. Here's a translation. The description of Ishmael as Avram's son implies that Avram regarded him as his son in every sense of the word. It was only in relation to Sarah that Ishmael was considered the son of the maidservant. She called him Ben Ha'am, so says the Netziv. So we're talking about a real split in the family here. Think about this. A real split in the family about what's the deal with Ishmael. Ad kedei kach that Hashem had to tell Avraham Avinu, do what you want with him. So we need to know that. We also need to know, for homework, that when Avraham Avinu took Yitzchak to the Akedah, when Yitzchak was how old? 37. So now we're talking fast forward, 37. And he called Shnei Na'ar Avito. Who did he take with him? Eliezer and Ishmael. Ishmael was in the desert someplace. What was Ishmael coming? He came home. He came home. He was at the funeral of Avraham Avinu. He was at the Akedah Yitzchak. Why? And Avraham Avinu turns to them, to Eliezer, and to Yitzchak, and to Ishmael. Here's the three. And he says, Avraham Avinu saw the Shekhinah on the mountain, and he says, what do you guys see?
They don't see anything.
Eliezer says, I don't see anything. Ishmael says, I don't see anything. Yitzchak says, I see the Shekhinah. Just like the Chamor doesn't see, you don't see it. So this was the first time that he took. Now Yitzchak already knew, Avram already knew that he might be killing Yitzchak today. So he took his two bets with him. He took Ishmael with him, and he took Eliezer with him. He took them with, because Eliezer, don't forget, wanted to marry Yitzchak. Remember, Eliezer said, let my daughter marry Yitzchak. I want to get in the line. Ishmael, Haggar said, go there, go. You'll be the one in the line. Yitzchak is getting killed today. It was a big yontif for Ishmael and for Eliezer. We have another chance. Amazing. So this was Ishmael, we're going to learn, appears and reappears until today. Appearing and reappearing and disappearing and reappearing. This is what's happening. Okay, we'll leave it there.